Dear students, welcome back to our English class. We had already completed the first two lessons of Unit 3. Now, we are in the third lesson of Unit 3, that is, Climate Change is not hysteria, it's a fact, written by Leonardo DiCaprio. And can you identify the theme from the title? Yes, it's preservation of nature, environmental issues, natural phenomena, and natural calamities. Climate change is no longer some far off problem. It's happening here, it's happening now. These are the words of Barack Obama. Let's hear the speech delivered at the UN Climate Summit by Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo Wilhelm DiCaprio was born on November 11, 1974. He is an American actor, producer, the founder of Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, and a UN messenger of peace with a special focus on climate change. He gained public recognition with leading roles in drama and films before achieving international fame with James Cameron's epic romance Titanic in 1997. He is also a committed environmentalist. He has often played unconventional roles, particularly in biopics and period films. As of 2019, his films have grossed $7.2 billion worldwide US dollar, and he has placed 8 times in annual ranking of the highest paid actor in the world. Now, let's go on the summary of the speech delivered by Leonardo DiCaprio. In September of 2014, the United Nations held the very first climate summit in New York City, inviting UN members and representatives, government officials, industry heads, and the public to unify under a general and definitive goal of lowering carbon emission and fighting climate change. The opening remarks of the summit were given by actor Leonardo DiCaprio, known for his roles in movies such as Titanic, Wolves of Wall Street, and The Revenant. DiCaprio is also a well-spoken and vocal supporter of the environment and other humanitarian crises. In a speech of the UN, he laid out why the calls of lowering carbon emissions worldwide are not only valid but urgent. In the first 2 minutes of his 3.5-minute speech, he lays the foundation of his argument and attempts to convince policymakers that they are to be held responsible for the climate crisis. He brings up the climate march in New York, of which he was a part, that saw 4 million people crowding streets to demand action on climate and environmental issues. He says this to demonstrate the public's interest in creating a better world through an almost bandwagon approach. The appeal used here sets a base for the rest of his speech. Everyone knows that climate change exists, so why are we doing nothing about it? Being one of the most famous actors in the world, DiCaprio is no stranger to public speaking and making himself as believably earnest as possible. This shows in the speech to the UN. He has a confidence to be talking to the most powerful people in the world and maintaining a seriously stoic composure throughout his speech. His facial expressions, gestures, and eye contacts are almost perfect. He does not seem nervous or unprepared in the slightest. The way in which he uses a small number of gestures and movements to indicate importance is not overdone to the point of being unavailable, and not so suppressed that he seems stiff. His facial expressions are those of an actor who has practiced the art for decades, and he seems to know the optimal time for eye contact in a general direction before turning slightly to address a different section of the room. The rate at which he talks is also very helpful to his argument. If he had jitters and spoke faster than he needed to, his speech would have amounted to less than 2 minutes, and the audience would likely dismiss his thesis on the simple basis that he did not deliver with confidence. This confidence during public speaking works extremely well for Leonardo DiCaprio, and we should also do the same. Now, let's move in detail of the lesson Climate Change is Not Hysteria, It's a Fact by Leonardo DiCaprio. Climate change is not hysteria. Hysteria means excitement or uncontrollable emotion. It's a fact. Climate change is a fact. Here, Leonardo DiCaprio thanked Mr. Secretary General, then greeted all the excellency and the distinguished guests. First, he said that he is very proud to be there. And also he added that he is not an expert but a concerned citizen who is one among the 4 lakh people who marched in the streets of New York on Sunday, and the billions means 100 crores of people around the world who want to solve the problem. What is the problem there? It is our climate crisis. As an actor, he acts for a living. That is, he plays imaginary character. Often the problems are imaginary. And he believed that the mankind also looked the climate change in that way, as if it were a fiction happening to someone else's planet, for some other planets, not for our planet, as if pretending that the climate change wasn't real. It would somehow change by itself. I hope this is a belief of our mankind. Hope you understood the first 2 paragraphs of the lesson. The rest we will see in the next video. Now let's have the model reading. Model reading. Climate change is not hysteria, it's a fact. Written by Leonardo DiCaprio. Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests. I am honored to be here today. I stand before you not as an expert, but as a concerned citizen, one of the 4 lakh people who marched in the streets of New York on Sunday, and the billions of others around the world who want to solve our climate crisis. As an actor, I pretend for a living. I play fictitious character, often solving fictitious problems. I believe mankind has looked at climate change in that same way, as if it were a fiction happening to someone else's planet, as if pretending that climate change wasn't real would somehow make it go away. So students, please go through the first 2 paragraphs and the summary of the lesson. We will see the rest in the next class. Try to answer the first 2 questions also in your textbook. Thank you.